Chapter 10. Which path to oneself should be chosen, long or short? What God believes in is His reality, even if God doesn't know that He is God. Others constantly use this ignorance against Him, forcing Him to believe in someone but not in Himself. Because by His faith He creates His life and their future universal worlds of living spiritual thought. When you can ascend to your eternal throne, nirvana, you, all the eternal games of the consciousness of your united, you begin to see empty, equal, holy from the very beginning. This throne of eternal bliss, created from the eternal knowledge of oneself, it shines with love for oneself in the image of eternal being. Descending from the throne of nirvana, you enter into your eternal games of living consciousness in the form of multidimensional universes of your living consciousness. You can play your eternal games consciousness without descending from the throne of nirvana. It will look like a spontaneous response to a request for the game of your subjects of creation, living thought images of all being, where your eternal pure empty state decides whether to respond, which, as a standard of justice, decides whether to interfere in this game at this moment of time, or leave everything is as it is. Because no matter where the game is redirected after the intervention, all the ways of its game will forever be unique and perfect, and the call of the actors in the game is needed only for their better condition in the eternal game. But since the one who arrives at the throne of nirvana knows that all the actors in the game are himself, therefore, to interfere in him doesn't want an eternal game, only in extreme global moments in which the players brought the game and themselves to complete self-destruction. And even then, not always, because the players are multidimensional and having destroyed themselves and sandboxes for playing in one dimension of consciousness or atomic molecular world, they will continue to live in the second dimension of living consciousness, triune eternal living consciousness. Therefore, sitting on the throne, nirvana, doesn't worry about how today's game will turn in the third density of living consciousness, sandbox, atomic molecular universe, since the players, children in it. Anyway, tomorrow we'll return to play it again, here or in another sandbox in the form of new toys, and it will be forever until the player reaches the consciousness of the first density, the God of eternity, and sit down again on his eternal throne, nirvana. This will happen in one game, if the player is ready, or in the short eternity of games in various images and sandboxes of various sizes, in images from a person, an angel, a god of the universe, and sandboxes from a planet, galaxies, to their own universe. It depends on what karma as the accumulated experience in transforming their soul as a living consciousness in the image the player chose, the karma of creation, human, the main state of which is manifest self-knowledge in all planetary games and gain experience for the transformation of the soul, and ego consciousness, which is the guide to the next game, picking up a new sandbox for yourself, or go to the next stage by choosing karma, angel, the main state of which is the outgrowth of planetary games and the emergence of a desire to help the player's soul in their universal games and God, the creator of universes, in his creation. This happens by the method of transformation of the ego consciousness and the accumulated karmic experience, the living consciousness of the soul, transforming into the angelic image of the soul, for the first time is born not in the third density of consciousness, atomic molecular world, and in the sandbox of the second level of consciousness of spiritual dimensions, on the heavenly planets where angels are born, and the size of the game sandbox increases to the size of the universe, changing the very essence of the game, so transforming the soul, karma, or individual accumulation of the living consciousness of the soul leads us to the next level of karmic manifestations, or what is called God, the creator of the individual universe of living consciousness. which corresponds to the desire to manifest all the accumulated self-knowledge of the soul into the image of an individual universe. Here we, as the God of our individual universe, will linger on for a short eternity, until we embody the grain of our living soul, which for so long accumulated the juices of games and accumulations of our living consciousness in the Mother Universe, into our tree-owned universe of living consciousness. Finally, having grown from a seed of a child of a soul into the tree of the God of the Creator of His universe, and blooming with the flowers of wisdom, manifesting the fruits of eternal knowledge in the fields of His living consciousness of the universe of a living, multidimensional thought, in the form of His living creations, after playing in the creation of His individual universe, the time comes for the outgrowth of all eternal games in the eternal soul. It remains to dissolve your individual soul in your supersoul, the God of eternity, while the individual karma of the soul, as a component of its living consciousness, dissolves in its supersoul, replenishing the treasury of eternal self-knowledge with an invaluable offering in the form of new knowledge, having presented them to yourself to the God of eternity, having rightfully returned to the throne of your name, Nirvana, the God of eternity, and already from the throne of your eternity, you again contemplate the eternal games of your living consciousness with dimensions of infinity, dressed in endless images of your children. That is, you are one. Thus ends the long path of the game of self-knowledge of oneself in oneself as one. The short path begins with the dissolution of one's individual soul and the karmic game accumulations of the ego consciousness during one life, which allows one to sit on the throne, Nirvana, while still in the human body. For this, the karma of creation, the human ego consciousness, and the thirst for planetary games dissolves. The next karma, angel, dissolves. The next karma, the God of the Creator of the universe, dissolves. And all states corresponding to these karmas, play, help, create. Someone can say that it somehow sounds without stuffiness and without life, but it's the state behind the games and the only time from which you can contemplate your eternal games with yourself, looking at your eternity with a pure vision. In this pure vision, everything is balanced, actors and games of eternity. Good and evil are aligned as eternal events on the stage of the consciousness of a single. Therefore, having chosen a fast path to themselves, some souls, already during their lifetime in a physical body, can feel dissolution in their oversoul, the God of eternity, contemplating their games of living consciousness from a state of bliss outside of time, where everything is aligned with the pure equal vision of all events in their multidimensional consciousness, because not pure vision is a choice of significance and priorities. And this is the coronation of one's eternal living thought in an image, which, crowning one thought, underestimates the significance of another. And since all living thoughts, images and actions performed by them on the stage of eternal consciousness are equally important, as an image of the joint play of a single consciousness, then the benefit coming from all of them is priceless and equal. Although it is not seen as such, but it is still so. Therefore, he who arrives at the throne of Nirvana equalizes and tries on in himself all his eternity of living consciousness with the help of his true eternal knowledge, knowing for what purpose of self-knowledge of himself alone he, that is, you, created all this in himself as one. And then it's simply in a state, Nirvana, where in every moment there is the perfection of a single game with yourself. Your pure vision has never seen another in its games of a single living consciousness. Knowing this from your current state in which you are, think about it, and just choose the path for yourself to yourself. Long through eternity or short in one life, it's up to your soul, because two paths leads you to your home, to the God of eternity, to your eternal state, Nirvana.